Welcome to Board Game Homies, where a group of friends play, review, and share about all things board games. Sitting around the table today are...
Reed,
Becky,
Gillian,
and I'm Angela, and today we have first, second, and third impressions of Kutná Hora, the City of Silver, aka never you mind what I'm doing over here. But first, what are you playing, and what's giving you joy?
Well, Becky and I have both been talking about our love of Isle of Cats. I think we were playing so many different games that had fun elements to them that the polyominoes didn't really stick out. And then we started playing like Wild Tiled West and other polyomino games. And I'm like, oh, maybe I do really like those.
I think you also had a problem with the boots, which is a game mechanic that allows you to go first. And so Reed would just be like, what are these boots doing? What do they do? I have 19 boots. And everyone's like, that's too many boots, Reed.
I didn't understand the boots for a long time and then definitely overcompensated the boots. And now I'm like, does it matter if you go first? But I guess if you really want a specific cat, you need to go first.
because sometimes your good friend Angela will take the 3-fish cat that you really needed so you could afford all 6 of your cats, which is an insane amount of cats to be purchasing.
Yeah, and way to think that you have ownership of these cats. I love Isle of Cats and this notion that we're saving them from like villainy on an island and getting them on our boat, and a mix of card drafting and tile placement. I'm excited that you guys are excited about Isle of Cats bringing you joy.
I want to say Isle of Cats is maybe one of my favorite games, and I think it's just because the cats are so cute.
Isle of Cats is one of the few games that Becky actually initiated backing on Kickstarter. I ended up getting the original copy after the first Kickstarter, and Becky loved it so much that when they put it up on Kickstarter again with an expansion, she wanted me to back it immediately. First case where she's taken initiative in those kind of crowdfunding things.
I really wanted those cat pins, and they are great.
Is there another Isle of Cats? Is there another version? Has that come out yet?
There is the Roll and Write, which is out, and then there is Race to the Raft, which is set in the same universe. Also has the same art style, but I don't know mechanics-wise how it plays.
Isle of Cats is also really bringing me joy right now. We are playing a game of it on Board Game Arena, and I think it actually, I think they did a really great job of Isle of Cats on there. I still would prefer to play it in person, and playing it on Board Game Arena makes me want to play it in person, which my birthday is coming up, and we're going to play all the polyomino roll and write games.
Including A Feast for Odin.
Said not Becky.
That's your birthday.
But you said all of the polyomino games, Becky.
That's your and co-op games. So I kind of have a really long list. So sorry to Angela and Reed's family.
We've never played a cooperative game, have we? I haven't played a cooperative game with you all.
Wow, I don't know if we have.
Was one of our viticulture games co-op, or did we
No.
just talk about it?
No, and I think you all played, was it Spirit Island without me? Is
No,
that
we didn't even play
cooperative?
Spirit Island. Angela hates co-ops.
I don't hate co-ops, but maybe I hate co-ops. We'll see. Oh, we have played a cooperative game, but it was
Dead of Winter.
cooperative against each other when we played the 4-player version of The King is Dead.
Oh yeah, that was Teams.
Teams.
Oh, yeah.
That's like co-op. I mean, we weren't all friends, but mostly friends.
I love that game, and I want to play it more.
Reed, are you having 2 games that bring you joy on this one podcast?
I am. King is Dead. I kind of talk about a lot and wanting to play a lot, and Isle of Cats is just, I think the BGA game has made me really want to play it.
I'm really excited about Faraway. It's a game where you get cards and you select 8 of them, and there's kind of a going around mechanic, and I haven't actually played it, but I bought it because of FOMO and it's making the internet rounds. But I also like games that are quick, cutesy card games, and the interesting mechanic about this one is you play 8 cards, but you score backwards. And so the card that you score at the end, you'll score first, the card at the end you score first. And if the scoring is needed, say you need 2 of a symbol and you don't have that yet, because you've only flipped 1 card, you don't get points for it. And then you score the next card, and now it counts both of your first 2 cards, the last one you played, and then this one. And so I I'm fascinated to see how that mechanic will go. And also coming off of our FOMO episode where I was like, I'm not going to buy any board games because I'm going to promise not to have FOMO. I then suddenly purchased a game based on FOMO and the internet, and am going to live in my shame, but also my joy of playing Faraway.
I don't think you're the only one living in shame after the FOMO episode. Like, if anything, we were egging each other on at the end.
It was not great.
Does this mean I get to get ice?
We should get you ice for your birthday, Becky.
But what if it's bad?
Then it was a present. You don't feel bad about buying it.
Great point.
I'm looking forward to playing Paladins of the West Kingdom. It's a game by Garphill Games, and I think I've talked about them in the past on the podcast, but I really like Raiders of the North Sea. Was one of my favorite worker placement games. It's been a long time since I played Raiders of the North Sea, so I want to give that one a shot as well. But Paladins of the West Kingdom is one that I bought somewhat on a whim quite a while ago, and it was largely based on the conversation, the board game community. It was at the time the heaviest game in the West Kingdom and also North Sea trilogies, and up to that point the heaviest game that Garphill Games had made. And I played it once, Becky and I played it once, and I came away really enjoying it. Becky was kind of lukewarm on it, and unfortunately I haven't touched it since, so I only had the one play under my belt. But I want to give it another shot because I want to confirm that I like it. I want to try it again and explore that game and its puzzle that it presents. And also want to revisit Raiders of the North Sea now that I'm talking about it. Just another worker placement game, not just another worker placement game, but one that has both of them kind of have unique mechanisms in terms of how you place workers and the actions in which you take and all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to playing both of those.
That brings me a lot of joy. Again, these games are all ones I want to play. Because the Garfield games, that specifically those trilogies, seem a little intimidating. Like, I see the covers. I like the art style a lot. I don't know anything about them, and it seems intimidating just to pick one up. And there was one on the used game shelf that was the first time I thought, I was like, ooh, here's a steal of a deal. Maybe I should pick this one up. And I didn't, because it just seems really overwhelming. So the fact that you have two of them and you can help guide us through it makes me very happy that you're like, I want to play these right now. And I was like, ooh, I want to play those right now too. So I'm excited at your joy.
Me too. I am looking forward to giving Paladins another try because it has been a while. And I do remember I was lukewarm about it, but I do not remember why.
Today we're reviewing Kutná Hora, the City of Silver from Czech Games Edition. It's a 2023 release for 2 to 4 players. It's designed by Andre Bryston, Peter Kasava, Pavel Orich, and the art is by Roman Bender, Stevan Drastic, David Jarlonsky, Jacob Polster, and Milan Varon. Much apologies for your names. You are all very wonderful. Kutná Hora is a real city in the central Bohemian region of the Czech Republic. It rose to prominence in the 1300s due to the riches of its silver mines. Great wealth was amassed, as was its cultural and political influence. Today, visitors will be stunned by the beauty of the medieval Gothic church, St. Barbara. In Kutná Hora, 2 to 4 players are building up the City of Silver. Players have an identical set of 6 cards, which allow them to place hold on plots of land, purchase rights to buildings, specify one of the 3 guilds, or purchase public buildings. Once rights to a building are purchased, the stack of buildings moves from the far right, making them more expensive for the next player. You can build those buildings or explore the silver mines. Take a look at Santa Barbara Cathedral, receive income, or take a wild action. Each of the cards is double-sided, so when you play one action on the card, you lose the ability to do the other action depicted, and you only play 5 of the 6 cards in your hand. The game takes place over 5 rounds in a 4-player game, and then all players must pay taxes. This game features a variable economic market. Costs for almost everything fluctuates. As the population increases or mines are explored, so does the cost of goods increase or decrease. Buildings and rights are actually determined by the cost of wood or by purchasing rights, which increase. So the players must multiply the shown cost by what the market price is. Guys, what'd you think of Kutná Hora, the City of Silver?
Everything that you just said made me really want to play this game. I was remembering the cards. I didn't think about that as I was preparing my notes for this. But I like how on the cards there are two different options depending on how you flip it. Well, they're both vertical, just upside down. And I like that you get to choose the action, and they're not all the same cards. So like building and mines might be on the same card on one, but building might be on the same card as rights or something like that. And so you not only choose your action, but you choose which card, which will eliminate your ability to play the action on the other side of it. And I think that that's a fun element of choosing how to play your turn.
Yeah, I agree. That was one aspect of the game that I really enjoyed, were the dual use cards. And it was, for me, very reminiscent to Revive. Revive was the first game I had personally played that had the, you could either use the top or bottom side of the cards, and Kutná Hora presented that in a much different way. And I enjoyed that a lot. It made you think in terms of plotting out your next few turns and trying to think ahead in that regard. So I enjoyed that. Another aspect that I really enjoyed, and I know Angela talks about it a lot, is a fluctuating market, or a live market in a board game. And Kutná Hora, I think, was the first one that we had played together as a group that had that aspect in it. And so it's a really fun one. It's a little more abstract, in my opinion, in this game than it is in, say, Clans of Caledonia, where you have a card that as soon as you sell or build something, actually, it will cause you to flip a card, and to flip a card or move a little toggle to increase population, or to represent the increase in population and meeting the demands of that resource that you've just consumed or supplied to the populace. And so that was really interesting in how it interacted with your game plans and how it might mess you up in subsequent turns.
I did appreciate that the market was dynamic, but I never figured out how it worked, because there was one game where I was really frustrated because as you're going through, there comes a point where you've built too many of those buildings, used those resources, and you can't build it for a while and for multiple cards in a row. And I'm pretty sure both of the games I was fighting with Angela, but the last building I could never build because the market never got to it, and I didn't get why. And then in another game, when Angela got the last building, it finally flipped for her to be able to build it. And I was like, why? I don't understand you.
The fluctuating market mechanism is something that for some reason it takes a while for my brain to figure out. And I think at the basic level, like Brass Birmingham's like coal and iron get more expensive as you use that. It took me a really long time to figure that that is a similar concept as Clans and Kutná Hora have.
Yeah, and I think the market is also tied. So each of you get kind of 3 specialty guilds, but there might be more available buildings, but those are for guilds you don't have. So you can't build a building that you don't have a guild for. And so Becky and I were competing as the only 2 people who could build this type of building because these were our guilds. And so it led to an interesting push and pull dynamic where I was like, I hope Becky doesn't get this. Oh no, she's caused the price of ham to crash. So now I'm not going to build a butchery shop because there's so much ham in the market now that, it's really weird. And I appreciate that about the market, where I'm watching other players to be like, don't you dare frickin' crash the price of ham, because I'm going to take income on my turn. And now it's, it went from Becky, ham cost $5, and then Becky built a ham building, which sounds funny. She built a meat market. And when she did that, now there's so much meat in the market, it's only worth $2. So by the time it gets to my turn, my income, instead of being 5 times whatever my ham level is only 2 times my ham level. And I was like, now I'm getting $10, where if you can play that market, I took income where I was getting like $35, $36 because the cost of things were really high. And so you're trying to take income at the right times and never knowing who's going to crash the market.
I'm glad that you explained that, because this whole time I was like, are they making the buildings out of ham? Like, I didn't quite understand what was happening with it. I don't think I ever got ham as my turn.
Talking about the fluctuating market, one thing that was interesting is as you go to construct buildings, you have to take several steps before you can actually construct, which by the time you're able to reserve a plot and then get a schematic and then finally build, there's a lot of opportunity for the market to change between that initial step to the final step. And so that was really interesting, just waiting with bated breath to see if somebody crashed the market before you were able to, build a meat market or what have you. All of them do require lumber, though, so that was really interesting. Whoever had the lumber guilds kind of controlled, in a way, the cost of buildings for people, because if they didn't build lumber yards, the rest of us would have to pay premium prices to construct our buildings, whereas once they built a lumber yard, lumber would go down, and so it'd be cheaper for other people to build. And so that was really interesting dynamic, just watching the people at the lumber guilds to see if they're prepping to build something or not.
I had lumber the first game, but didn't play it well because my income was only like 6 to 12 groschen or something like that each turn. Whatever was happening, it was not happening well.
I like that when you score this game. So first, the production of this game is absolutely beautiful. It's one of the highlights of the game. And there's a middle market where you're kind of placing these buildings. You're placing your plot in one of these areas, and then you'll score if your building has certain symbols around the edges that match other symbols around the edges. And then there are public buildings that belong to no one that also have a multitude of symbols. And so if you can put a public building next to your personal building, you'll score even more. But the tiles are really beautiful. Like, the colors are vibrant and poppy, and there's like a feel of silver and gold all throughout. And there's these really nice dual layered player boards that you get that so snugly fit your pieces. It's very satisfying to like move it up these little marks. And I thought the production value was just really, really high on this game. They use something called E-wood, I think. Rewood for their pieces. So the pieces are not plastic. It's 80% like wood shavings and chips with 20% recycled material. And they can get a high level of detail out of these figures that you have, these little like worker people, mine people, and little houses that you have. And I just think the production value is really high, and it shines. Those buildings that you put into that center market, you flip over, and it just has this like kind of dazzling little building that you end up building.
Yeah, the aesthetics of the game are really impressive, with largely high contrast visuals, with the board being black and white, and then the white largely being silver foil printed on the boards. That's very appeasing to very aesthetically pleasing. And then the buildings themselves were very vibrant colors. So when you flip the tiles over, you had the buildings on that kind of silver black background, and just it popped. And so yeah, it's very, very pleasing to the eyes.
I really love a production turn or a production component of this game, of any game. And this game, I really liked that part. It was hard to have it fluctuate so much on the market. But one of the mechanisms that I like is that, since we played White Castle a lot, I'm thinking about that when you remove pieces from your player board, it sparks more benefits. And I don't think that happens in the production turn, but it's just something that I like. Like, the more that you remove, the more benefits that you get.
Yeah, that would happen when you place, so the action would be to place a plot to claim your land, and then you would purchase the rights to the building, and then you would build the building. But once it was built, you'd put your little house on it. And depending on where your little house was, it would trigger a little benefit that you have. And so that's kind of the similar piece. I also liked, which seems silly, that you had to pay taxes. I like that this game has a historical tie, that as you're building up this city and you're getting more ham buildings and more lumber buildings and you're discovering the mines, taxes are increasing, right? You're bringing you're buying politicians as like a scoring metric if you choose to. And so the town is becoming more and more prosperous, which is a tie back to literally the city of silver and what this meant. And I think coming from Czech Games Edition, a place that's like really special to the Czech Republic, is like, I don't know, it's just a really nice tie. It feels like a game that is from the heart and has all of this historical ties back to it, that there's something to be appreciated about that.
Yeah, I have some Czech family, like some Czech background, and I didn't know anything about this, and it was kind of this other layer of like, oh, I'm enjoying getting to learn about this.
This game isn't without its flaws. And I think that there were a few pieces and a few misses that this game had. For me, a little bit, maybe a lot of it, is this discovery piece of the mines. So it's called the City of Silver, and that's because there's an entire component we haven't really talked about, which is building out the mines. And I think we all found the mines a little problematic.
Yeah, the very first time we played it, I decided to go very heavy in the mines because I thought, hey, City of Silver, I have the mining guild, I'm going to go for it. And yeah, just in the end, it doesn't give you a ton of points, even if you have the majority in the different rows in the mines and you go as far down as you can. It just didn't seem as profitable as, say, building new buildings and getting that kind of area control element on the surface maximized. So yeah, it was disappointing in that regard. And I think after a few plays, I think that was still a general consensus among us, was that the mine game didn't seem to hold up to the other methods of scoring points.
I think that for the mine game to be successful, you had to have the mine tokens that or the player that allowed you to build in the mines at a discount or get kind of an ongoing benefit. Because the first game we played, I went heavy into the mines, but had to pay for all of the exploration or excavation or whatever that was. And it didn't end up paying off for me. And then the next game, I did little to no mines at all, but I had that mining guild, I'll call it. And I ended up only placing a couple, and I didn't win, but the amount of effort that other people spent on the mines, I ended up only losing by a couple points without having even touched the mines, basically.
That was my experience with the mines too. The first game we played, I had it as a guild. I only built there when the guild let me, and it worked out great for me. I think the mines are interesting. It feels more fiddly scoring the points than the rest of the game in a way, just because you're looking at each tile randomly, maybe has a star or 2 stars, and it depends on what you draw and then what you play, and you're looking at how many tiles you have a miner on in each row and how many stars are on those tiles and also how many stars are in the row. And then you look at, well, if there's 3 to 5 stars, then the person with the majority scores this. If there's 6 to 8 stars, the person with the majority scores this. And it just felt like it didn't flow as well as the rest of the game, in my opinion.
Something besides the mines that kind of didn't hit it for me is that there's a part of the track where you can choose which area you're going to focus on for endgame scoring, and you have the opportunity to kind of purchase influence with politicians to say that you're going to score better on this area. And it wasn't kind of doing it for me as far as like a common race to get there. I felt like if none of us played up there, it wouldn't have impacted the scoring. It was just when 1 or 2 of us did that we were all kind of like, okay, I guess we need to play that now. But it wasn't something that felt like really drove the game.
Yeah, and it felt difficult because those politicians benefited everybody. So it wasn't as if you had paid off the politician to only score you points. If you got the politician that would score you for, having a person in each row of the mines, that would also score for anybody else that had a person in each row of the mines. So it was often difficult to find that single politician that lined up perfectly for you and nobody else at the time. And they also scored, I think, the last 3 rounds of the game. So that was really interesting, but money felt fairly tight in the game to the point where I felt like I couldn't devote the 10 groschen to actually pay off the politicians. And so, I would say we didn't really do that very much in the few plays that we've had. I
do like, as the rounds go on, the the game changes a little bit. My memory is a little fuzzy about it right now, but like Gillian was saying, the politicians only score the last 2 or 3 rounds. And then somewhere around the middle, like some extra tiles are added to the board that you can purchase to build. And like Angela mentioned earlier too, like that's when you pay taxes. And I also like the taxes. And there are some tiles, and maybe on that track, that flip the Santa Barbara. No, did I just... Dang it, Angela!
It's Santa Barbara. That's what it is.
The St. Barbara tiles. And I feel like as soon as I was able to finally get those, like the board flips the best ones.
I would always flip the ones that were like a penalty or something like that. I'm like, I've waited this whole time to do this, and it didn't end up paying off ever.
Yeah, the St. Barbara Cathedral was really hard to judge throughout the game because it had several different spaces, and certain public spaces or buildings, when they were constructed, would flip one of those tiles, so it was no longer available for anybody, and whoever would do the St. Barbara action would then do the next available spot. And each one of those has a different benefit to them, and some are much better than others. And so if you could time it just right, hold off for the perfect moment, you could have a very explosive turn that could net you quite a few points. And I definitely benefited from that once or twice. And so that felt a little overpowered and underwhelming at the same time, in a way.
I do want to quickly correct myself in the pod. I believe the tiles were only flipped from building the public buildings. It doesn't happen during the score track or the round track.
There were some things that would allow you to flip a tile, weren't there? Or was it only public buildings?
Public buildings.
Public buildings.
Oh, interesting.
Or unless you played your Santa Barbara, your Saint Barbara.
Yeah.
So the joke is, I'm from California, and there is a town called Santa Barbara, and so every time we'd play the Saint Barbara church, I would just go Santa Barbara, and then we all started just saying Santa Barbara.
I built a public building. I built a library, of all things to do. I wanted to build a library. We've got a lot of library fans around here. And I peaked too soon on that. Like, I spent all of my money. It was so expensive. It was like my second move because I thought that was how I was going to get the most points. But then I didn't realize everyone else would get points from it. And it was just like the rest of my game, I was just poor and sad.
Now, Reed, I will say, as somebody who read the rules book, which is very beautiful. I really like the rule book on this game. It puts in a tip that says, and I said to the group, don't build public buildings too soon. And Reed was like, but what if I did? And then the answer is, if you do, you will not be able to ever get your engine going because
horrible.
You will spend all of your time trying to get
my
more
ham. I never could figure that out. I have to say, every time we've played, I've been really impressed with like how Gillian strategically gets the best spots on the map, which is not uncommon to playing with Gillian. But I've been super impressed with how Becky seems to place tiles with the symbols aligned and regularly just is like crushing the end game scoring as far as like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of these different things. I'm sure that Becky can also count, but it's just impressive that you place a tile and think about that. I'm more thinking about proximity to public buildings rather than the alignment with the tile symbols.
It's kind of funny because the last game we played of it, I totally forgot that I should try and build next to the public buildings, and that game did not go well for me. I don't know where my mind was in that game.
I will say one which is kind of two. I mentioned how beautiful the aesthetic is, and I stand by it. This is one of the nicest productions of a game that I have seen without having to have any upgraded bits if I was just to judge. But there are two slight misses. One that I did not think was that bad, which is the cover is a giant Groschen silver coin on the cover, which isn't super enticing to what the game is, but that's fine. That didn't steer me away from purchasing it, certainly. But I think the second slight miss was the construction, and we've tried to explain it, but this is an audio format. there are these cards that you flip every time the population changes, and they have these bars that go across. And so you move the bars at certain times depending on what you've built. But the cardboard to put the thing together is kind of slightly raised, and it took us a while because we couldn't see what the card said for a lot of our games, and we kind of had to like jerry rig it together. And when I was building it, like kind of two of the pieces didn't quite fit together, and so I was like having to jam it in. And so that was a little bit of the miss. I love the variable market, but it's hard to see the cards, and the card holders can be a little stodgy and hard to move and build.
I don't mind the cover of the game. I think it's like kind of a matte black with a shiny black on top of it. And what was surprising for me is when you open up the box and it's so bright and beautiful. So I can see that it doesn't reflect it. But as far as like the cover design, I'm not against that.
Versus how beautiful and colorful the production is on this like black and silver surface.
I think it might appeal to different people who looked at it. I, like with a design background, one of the things that I really love is the illustration of the map that you play with the public buildings and the pieces that you're putting down is just, it's really spectacular. It's a type of illustration I feel like we don't see a lot in games. And I would love to see that even on the back of the box or something like that.
Sometimes the thing that we talk about is, who is this game for? Would you put this game in your collection? Who would you advise this game for? My personal answer to that is I did a lot of research for this game. It made the rounds at Gen Con and at Spiel, and it made a lot of people's top 2023, like top 10 games, and was really influenced by that. Again, you're trying to learn as much about a game before you purchase it. And the price tag was, I think, $60, 60 American dollars, not 60 groschen. And that was kind of a big investment. And I don't know, this game no longer sits in my collection. It sits on the used game shelf at our board game shop for about $10 less. And I may have to reduce that price even further. But this game was kind of hard because I think even though I've enjoyed the plays and I was super frustrated at the mines, what do you do when you own a game and it doesn't resonate with your board game friends?
I think that I was and still am surprised that this was in the coal pile for you. And I think that it is a game where we did all enjoy the play, but there are other games that we maybe enjoyed more that we were playing around that time. So it also comes into like, what were we playing and what was it competing with for us? And the mines were dumb. Like, I'm sorry to have to say that, but like the fact that we could have taken our, lost the mines the whole time. And like, that's what is coming down to, for me, being like, that was the least enjoyable part of the game. And it was significant enough to be like, meh.
It's interesting thinking about the mines again, in that I almost felt like I was at a disadvantage if I had the mining guild, just because I didn't have the option to buy one of the more prolific buildings. That said, one thing we didn't talk about regarding the mines is when you go into the mines, you have the opportunity to get ore as one of your resources that you kind of slide up on the track. And ore is, at least in the games we played, seemed to be a very lucrative resource. So there is that option there. So yeah, it'd be interesting to play it again, and I would try a different strategy and see if I could make the mining work, I think.
Would you buy a used copy of it?
No, but I would play it again if Angela took it off the used game shelf and, decided to give it another whirl.
I mean, maybe it will.
I do think this game is very beautiful, which is a thing I say about a lot of games when I listen back to our podcast. But it truly is beautiful. Like the others were saying, the colors are just amazing. And the first game that we played, I did really well. And then I think I did fine the second game and poorly the third game. And all three of them, I just kind of walked away like, this game is fine. And I think to what Reed was saying, I definitely would want to play a lot of games before I picked Kutná Hora, but I didn't dislike it. I know this isn't like a ringing endorsement, but like it was fine.
I said one of the previous podcasts that, I was really glad that Angela bought it, because this was also a game that I was looking at and watching a lot of reviews of, and I was very interested in. And Angela beat me to the punch and ended up buying the game. And after the first 2 plays, I thought to myself, I'm glad that Angela bought it instead of me. Because I opted for, I think it was the White Castle instead of Kutná Hora. And so that one has been a resounding success in our group, I think. And that said, Kutná Hora, I still kind of have a soft spot for it, even though I didn't seem to love the plays. Maybe it's one of those games that I just hate play. Or what's the term you say? Spite play.
It's not that bad.
Okay. Delete the hate play. Hold on. Just because I think I would like it if I maybe just played it a few more times to learn how to utilize the mines, if that's feasible.
That's a question that I have about replayability of this game. Like, Becky was like really strong, so clearly had an idea of how to play the game, and then had a couple lukewarm plays after that. And so it's like, is this a game where we kind of hit the game, found out what it was like to play it, and are just done with it?
Yeah, and this is why I bring up this question, because Kutná Hora isn't a game I would play with my partner. This isn't a game I would play with our other gaming group. The rules overhead is pretty high, and it has some different mechanics. So I just don't know who I would play this game if not with this gaming group. And when you have a game that everyone goes, well, it's okay, and then you kind of think about all of the games we're constantly bringing us joy. If Kutná Hora is not bringing us joy and we're not playing it at this table and we're just like, oh, I mean, I wouldn't say no, but I'm never going to ask for it, that makes it a hard game to add to your collection. And I tend to have, like I talked about, Faraway giving me joy it's a much lighter game. I can play that with multiple different groups, but if you're going to swing and miss, and your swing and miss is for your, heavy Euro style game friends, and that's the only group you can play that style of game with, I just don't know that it belongs in my collection. And after the first play, I was like, I don't care what anyone says, this game is staying in my collection. And after I think the 3rd or 4th play, I was like, man, those mines make it really hard. Like, I'm frustrated with the game. And whilst I think you can find different strategies, I don't know that we would ever get it to the table enough that it would spark enough joy for us to consistently play. And so I think that's kind of why it had to leave. But I do think about like bringing it back into the collection. And so that's hard. It's also hard to swing and miss on a game that costs $60. And so you're like, I want to get my price per play for this game. And, sometimes if you buy a new game and it's not for you or it's not for your game group, you just kind of have to eat it. And maybe that's just what's happening.
Well, that was one of the things that I was going to say that I think came into the conversation about a game that I had purchased that was like a very hot game at the time that we were kind of lukewarm about. And since I've played more and been like, oh, maybe I want to keep it. But when you're getting rid of a game, to get rid of a game that's relatively hot, like Kutná Hora, you could get your money back more than if you waited 10 years to get rid of it. And so, yeah.
I mean, you would say that, but it's probably overpriced for the used game shelf at our local board. I mean, if you're hearing this and you live next to our board game shop, please buy it. It's a great game.
Any ideas about what would make this game better? I mean, I do think all the games we played, the people who spent the least amount of time in the mines did the best.
Yeah, I think having some revision to how the mines work would benefit it. Also, I would almost say that the way that the politicians work would also be more interesting, in that if you were the one to fund the politician into space, they would only score for you. And that would be really interesting, because then it's your own investment that only benefits you. So that's one aspect that I think could help.
I think that's a really good point, and that I love a race. I've talked about this. I talked about this earlier, that if I were the first person to get that and the second person, either it wasn't available or they got a portion of the points, like I was going to say Terraforming Mars, but also Mlem is like that too. You know, that there's something about there would be more of an incentive for that. And then I also think, like, what if there were some buildings that required mine excavation in order to build? Because the problem with the mines is that it's a completely separate, like even physically separate board, essentially. Like it needs to be integrated into the rest of the game. And I think that it needs to be something that you have to go to the mines in order to do something else. And maybe the scoring mechanism can go away with it, but it has to be incentivized in some way.
Yeah, I don't like house rules, and I don't think that there's an easy fix to this game in a house rule setting. Nor do I think that there's an expansion slated to come out that would help some of these mechanical misses for me. But I do think it's a game that provides a lot of good, a lot of highs, and it also provides a lot of lows. And that's new for me. Like, usually a game strikes out. Like, you play a game and you just kind of know, right? Maybe you play it a few times and you're like, you know, this just isn't going to be. And with the four of us, if 2 or 3 people have been like, we love this game, and one person is like, no, like most games we play with Becky.
Not true.
It would be one thing, but I think we all kind of were in this, like, I think I was the biggest champion, probably because I bought it. But the rest of us were kind of lukewarm, and that's an interesting place to be about a game.
During the last play, we were like, I kind of like this game, but the mines are bad. Like, I remember having a conversation about that. So, yeah, games can have lows. Like what we were talking about in our, I don't know when it's coming out, but in our last podcast with Arc Nova, how there are some games where you get all these cards and it works with you, and there are some games where you're just like not matching up or your engine isn't working. And I would say that those are really lows, but that doesn't make you hate a game necessarily. This was just kind of like a indifferent. Like literally, if I never played it again, I wouldn't mind. I am kind of, my interest is a little bit more piqued after we had this conversation, but not enough to be like, go get it off the game shelf.
Reed, did you just say you wouldn't mind? Thank you for listening to Board Game Homies. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and drop us a line on our Instagram page at Board Game Homies. See you next time.
Yay! I did have one. Did you say how much it cost?
Oh, no, I haven't done that in the last 2 games.
Okay. That's fine.
Oh.
No, it's okay. I don't know if it matters.
I'm so concerned about cost, and I usually do.
You can get it for $50 now at Fun Kin Games. On the used shelf.
Spoiler!
Maybe
Angela.
$40 come this weekend.